Hi, I'm Jennell Evans, co-founder of Strategic Interactions, and I specialize in helping high achievers transform into extraordinary leaders. And one of the things that I do help leaders work on is developing their ability to be more resilient in life. And in this video, I want to share 5 strategies that will help you become more resilient. And this topic surfaced for me this week as I was preparing for the video because so many people are still struggling, extremely weary, fatigued, due to the COVID pandemic that we've all been living in now, moving into over a year. And so living in Zoomville, trying to manage kids being schooled at home, and so many stressors has really tested people's levels of resiliency. So I thought this would be a great topic to share and give you some strategies that will help. If you start using them now, it will really help you develop those resiliency muscles. And, some people seem to be able to handle the level of challenges that we've all experienced this past year much easier than others. They get really caught up in worrying about everything, even things that are way outside of their level of control. And I believe one of the main reasons that we all respond differently to adversity and challenges is our level of resiliency. So first, let me start by defining what resiliency is. And it's our ability to have the psychological strength to cope with stress and hardship. It's the mental reservoir of strength that resilient people call up when they're dealing with something tough to carry them through without falling apart. And that's something tough, maybe just coping with all of the impacts of the COVID pandemic or some other kind of trauma, tragedy, multiple sources of stress, like relationship problems at work or at home, serious health issues, job or financial stressors. Resilience involves bouncing back, right, from difficult experiences. And it can also provide us opportunities for expansive personal growth. So when we talk about resilient people, those are the folks that seem to handle adversity better than others. They seem to be strong emotionally in most any situation, including gut-wrenching situations like getting a serious health diagnosis or suddenly losing their job, which we know many people unfortunately have had, as well as the health diagnosis, or losing a loved one. Again, something many people have experienced this past year. So we admire people who seem to be able to work through some of the toughest situations humans will ever face with such rock solid strength to move forward. Now, some of us, are naturally maybe tougher than others. However, the good news is every person can develop their ability to be more resilient if we first choose to be and then take action to make it happen. Resiliency is not an inborn trait available to only a few people. We've all have the ability to be resilient and to learn how to build our resiliency muscles. I do this with leaders every week, so I do know this is possible. And from my own research, and I'm going to share some of what people who specialize in building resiliency think about it as well. So I'm going to begin by sharing 5 strategies that you can use starting today that will help you become more resilient. And the first one is really more of a mindset strategy, is to choose to intentionally shift your attitude and behavior when stressed. It's all about how you respond to stressors as the most powerful choice you can make to increase your resiliency. Despite whatever it is that you're dealing with, you can always choose how you respond to everything, and that is within our control. Linda Graham is the author of a great book that I've read about resiliency, and the book is titled Resilience: Powerful Practices for Bouncing Back from Disappointment, Difficulty, and even Disaster. And I want to share some actual quotes from her book that I thought were really excellent. And here's the first one. I'll quote, "The key to coping," she says, the key to coping in a situation is how we shift our perceptions, our attitude, and our response, our behaviors. It may seem that there's no end to external stressors. or to negative internal messages about how we're coping with them. That's why creating a shift in perception, again, our attitude, and in our responses to these stressors, to those stressors and those messages or behaviors, may be the most effective choice we can make to strengthen our resilience. You can experience the power of shifting your attitude and behavior by refocusing your attention from what just happened to how you are coping with what happened. And she gives a great example, which I'd like to share in the book. Here it is. I'm quoting, "The doctor wants to run more tests. Not such good news. This is really hard." That's the what just happened part. Well, it's better to know, better to get information. I need to deal with this head on. That's an example of how you're coping with what just happened. And she says the big lesson of this practice is that if we can shift our attitude and behavior in these circumstances, we can shift them in any circumstances. Knowing this is the big shift. She also included a great quote from Viktor Frankl that I'd like to share. "Between a stimulus and response, there is space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. The last of human freedoms is to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." She goes on to say, and I quote, "It's like moving from poor me to an empowered I, a shift from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, and being open to learning." You know, we all need to see ourselves as people who can be resilient and who are competent at coping and are competent at learning to cope, right? So that's the first strategy. The second strategy is to accept the truth that life is a series of peaks and valleys. Sometimes it's about our expectations in life. We want everything to be great all the time, and that's not realistic. It's kind of 50-50. So let's not fool ourselves with the rose-colored glasses, right? About how life really is. And that's going to help us prepare mentally and become more resilient. We know that setbacks and tough situations are normal life experiences. Life has both good times and bad times. Remaining hopeful helps us recover from the adversity, the deepest, scariest valleys that we can experience, so much faster. So when you're at a peak, I want you to really enjoy it, because it will be normal for you to experience a valley sometime in the future, and vice versa. The third strategy is to integrate at least one solid stress reduction ritual into your daily routine right now. So maybe you already have some things, but if you don't have anything, please consider adding at least one thing right now that will help alleviate stress. Because when our levels of uncertainty are high, we have more stress and we feel more fatigue. We feel more overwhelmed. We feel less able to cope, right? This heightened level of anxiety affects us even when we're not thinking about what is causing us stress. Too much stress impacts pretty much everything in our life, from our blood pressure, our heart rate, our food digestion, quality of sleep, ability to keep our emotions in check, being able to focus, being able to think clearly, and to solve problems at work or at home, to remember things, and more. So schedule one stress reducing ritual into your calendar and make it a non-negotiable. Start small. And you'll feel better right away. Don't try to go run a marathon in one day, right? So break down something that you want to do. Ultimately, maybe you do want to run a marathon one day, but start small with, one trip around the block. Take one yoga class. Journal your worries, your stressors, whatever's on your mind, from your head to your heart onto paper. Meditate for 5 minutes, and then increasing gradually until you develop a longer period of time every day to meditate. Take a walk outside. Schedule whatever it is, like an appointment with yourself, but begin with one small action. And once you integrate a stress reducing ritual into your life that you're able to maintain on a regular basis, sometimes daily, sometimes a couple days a week, then you might consider adding something else. We talk a lot about self-care, particularly during this pandemic. And I say it's time to really ramp up whatever it is you're doing, maybe add more to it if you're finding that you're feeling less resilient to what's going on. So this is so important because stress doesn't disappear or melt away. It actually accumulates and contributes to us feeling less resilient in life. So you've got to intentionally get rid of it every day. The fourth strategy is to live in the moments of your life right now, being mindful and fully present in the moments of our lives without judging them allows us to have a temporary escape from stress and whatever adversity we're facing, and it helps us conserve our energy instead of focusing on the past, which can lead us to feeling depressed, or worrying about the future, which can just increase our level of anxiety. Just to come right into the present moment and to experience that, what you're living right now as you're listening to this video right now in this moment is your life, right? So, whatever it is that you're engaging in throughout your day or evening, just be all in. When you're focusing on work, be all in. When you're focusing on being with your family or friends, be there and not be thinking about work, right? So, we want to be, not distracted by thoughts about, the past or the future. And I would like to add here, since I am a certified meditation teacher, if you engage with a meditation practice every day, that will supercharge your ability to be able to be present and to be mindful throughout your day. The fifth and final strategy I want to share with you is to practice gratitude every day. And I suggest twice a day. Um, when we focus on what's positive and wonderful that is happening in our life versus the opposite, it really helps diminish whatever negative things we are having to deal with and may be causing us not to feel as resilient as we'd like to be. So every morning and every evening, write down or at least think about three things that you're grateful for in your life. It will really help balance your perspective and remind you, that all is not doom and gloom if you're kind of feeling more, in that place versus more optimistic. So it's really up to each of us to develop our own resiliency muscles. And these 5 strategies that I just shared with you will help strengthen your ability to become more resilient. They're simple and they're very doable, but they take commitment and action, right? First step is awareness. Now you know, now you can take action. But I do want to say here, because in working with a lot of people that I know are struggling, if you're feeling that you've been stuck in a place that's not helpful to you for some time, that you're feeling stuck and that you need more support to make progress, then I would ask you to consider speaking to a mental health professional. So again, I specialize in helping like people who, identify as high achieving folks already become extraordinary leaders in their fields, in their companies, and that they're able to be fully present and have energy to enjoy their lives. And part of that process includes becoming more resilient. If you want to learn more about how I do that and working with leaders and organizations, please send me a message. My email is included in the description of the video, and we can set up a time to chat. But I'd like to wrap up with a quote from Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst. Yes, psychoanalyst. And here's the quote: I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. And I think that quote is so appropriate to this whole topic of becoming more resilient as we evolve, as we become more aware of things that we can do on our own to help us feel more resilient, especially during this time, what we've been experiencing for the past year, what we'll probably experience throughout our summer, and who knows how long. But these are things that we can do to give us that inner strength, that ability to handle whatever comes our way. Thank you.